I can order and compare fractions. Fractions are tough creatures. They all want to think they're the biggest. They can be quite tricky about it. Here's some angry fractions. We've got 7/10 and 5/7, and they're about to duke it out. They're going to throw down and fight about who's the biggest. So let's help them out, and let's settle this fight once and for all. Is 7/10 or 5/7 bigger? To find out, we need to 1. Find a common denominator, 2. Change both fractions into new ones with a common denominator, and 3. Just compare the numerators. So let me show you how that works. 1. What number is a multiple of both 10 and 7? Whatever it is, that's going to be our common denominator. I think I'll list some multiples of 10. I don't see any multiples of 7 yet. 70, that's a multiple of 7. So I'm going to go with that. Now we need to change both our fractions into new fractions with the common denominator. 7/10 is how many 70ths? I know that with fractions I always need to do the same thing to the top that I do to the bottom. So since on the bottom I multiplied by 7, I also need to multiply by 7 on the top. And 7 times 7 is 49. So this is 49 70ths. 7/10 and 49 70ths are equivalent fractions. Over here we need to change 5/7 into a fraction that has 70 in the denominator. I can see that with the denominator I needed to multiply by 10. So that means that with the numerator I also have to multiply by 10. And 5 times 10 is 50. So we've got 49 70ths over here and 50 70ths over here. When I compare the numerators, there it is. When I compare the numerators, I can see that 50 70ths is bigger. Aw, poor 7/10. He's really sad about that. But 5/7 won fair and square. Sometimes fractions are really far apart and it's easy to tell which one's bigger. We don't need to do all that stuff. For example, 1/3 and 9/10. Well, 9/10 is obviously much larger than 1/3, so we can write the symbol in without having to find a common denominator. However, if there is any doubt at all, you should always use the common denominator method. Let's try a problem with more numbers, some of which will be obvious, and some of which we'll need to find common denominators to compare. 1/4, 1/4, 8/9, 6/8, 2/3, and 3/5. Well, I can see that 8/9 is going to be the biggest because it's only 1/9 away from being a whole, and everything else is much farther away than that. I'm going to put 5 lines here for my 5 fractions, and I'm going to write 8/9 in the biggest slot. I can also see that 1/4 is the smallest fraction. 1/4 is an easy benchmark, and I know that all of these are bigger than a 1/4. But when it comes to 6/8, 2/3, and 3/5, man, those are pretty close, and I'm just not sure. I'm going to compare 2 at a time. Let's start with 6/8 versus 2/3. They're going to duke it out. Now, I first need to find a common denominator for 8 and 3, and that's going to be 24. 8 times 3 is 24, and it's also, I know that it's a multiple of both of those numbers. To get from 8 to 24, I needed to multiply by 3. So to get from 6 to something, I need to multiply by 3 also, and that's going to be 18. To get from 3 to 24, I needed to multiply by 8. So I have to do 2 times 8, and I get 16. So 6/8 is bigger than 2/3. Now I need to know where 3/5 fits in there. Let's try 3/5 versus 6/8. What's a common denominator for fifths and eighths? 40 is a good one. It's a multiple of both 5 and 8. 5 times 8 is 40. 3 times 8 is 24. 8 times 5 is 40. So 6 times 5 is 30. So again, 6/8 is bigger. Since 6/8 is bigger than either of the other two fractions I have left, I know I can put 6/8 right there. What I don't know yet is which of these two is bigger. I need to compare 2/3 and 3/5. First, I'll find a common denominator, and that's going to be 15. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 3 is 9. This is bigger. So 2/3 is bigger than 3/5. I go back up here and I can put 2/3 in the bigger spot and 3/5 in the smaller spot. I've plugged in all the slots and I'll just double check it. 1/4, 3/5, 2/3, 6/8, 8/9. Looks good to me. I'm all done. Now you try. Compare 2/3 and 8/11. You're going to find a common denominator, change them both into fractions with that common denominator, then compare the numerators. 2/3 and 8/11. Here's how I would solve it. A good common denominator is going to be 33. 3 times 11 is 33. 2 times 11 is 22. 11 times 3 is 33. 8 times 3 is 24. So 8/11 is bigger. You try again now with more numbers. Here's your numbers. 3/5, 8/15, 1/10, 19/20, and 9/12. Pause the video while you work that out. Here's the solution. First, I'm going to make 5 blanks so I can keep track as I go. I can see that 19/20 is by far the biggest. It's only 1/20 away from being a whole. So I'm going to put that in this biggest blank, 19/20. I can also see that 1/10 is the smallest. It's only 1/10 away from being nothing at all. I'm going to put 1/10 in the smallest one. Now I've got 3/5, 8/15, and 9/12. Both are pretty close to a half, a little bit bigger than a half. So I need to find the common denominators to compare them. 3/5 versus 8/15. They're going to fight. Who's going to win? Well, a good common denominator is 15. I don't have to do anything to 8/15 because it already has 15ths. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/5 is bigger because 9 is bigger than 8. All right. Now let's try 3/5 and 9/12. 3/5 versus 9/12. A common denominator for these two is 60. 5 times 12 is 60. 3 times 12 is 36. 12 times 5 is 60. 9 times 5 is 45. So 9/12 is bigger than 3/5. I don't have to compare 8/15 and 9/12. I know that 8/15 is smaller than 3/5, and 3/5 is smaller than 9/12. So I can fill that in. 8/15 is the smallest, 3/5 is next, and 9/12 is the biggest. 1/10, 8/15, 3/5, 9/12, 9/20. All done. Next steps, complete the practice page and take the online quiz. I can compare and order fractions. Can you?